As you prepare your visual aids, there's some things that you should probably keep in mind. First, you want to avoid putting too much information on your visual aids. Having too much information on your aids detracts from your actual speech, and it distracts your audience because they're too busy looking at your visual aid and they're no longer listening to you. So you want to have just enough information on your visual aid so that they can understand it, and that it maybe becomes clearer with just a little bit of explanation from you, but you want to make sure that there's not too much information, that you aren't putting your entire speech on your slide or anything like that. You also want to ensure that your visual aid is easily seen and or heard by the audience. And I'm talking about everyone in the audience. Everyone in the back row should be able to see what it is that you are referring to when you're using a presentation aid. Otherwise, there's no use in it, right? It's only helping some of your audience and not your whole audience. You also want to make sure that it's easy to use. For example, if you're using PowerPoint and you've never used PowerPoint before, you probably want to make sure that you know how to use PowerPoint so that you aren't sitting up there and fumbling with it before you give your speech, because that hurts your credibility as a speaker. If you're using a poster board, you want to make sure that it's not too big so as to be unwieldy, right? That you can't handle it. You want to make sure that your visual aid isn't too heavy for you to use while you're giving your speech. Those sorts of things. You also want to make sure that your visual aids are aesthetically pleasing. And aesthetics are kind of subjective. We're talking about how beautiful the visual aids are and how easy to look at they are. But there are definitely some rules that you should follow and some color schemes that you should avoid if you want to be aesthetically pleasing. In addition, you want to make sure that you remove your visual aids from sight when they are not in use. And we will accomplish this if you're using a PowerPoint by simply inserting a black slide in between each and every visual aid that you are going to be using. That way, when you advance from one slide to the other, you have a black slide in between so that there's nothing showing on screen when you don't want anything on screen. And you always, always, always want to have a backup plan. For your visual aids, you are going to be turning them into Canvas so that I can download them all in one shot on speech day. But you also want to make sure that you email your visual aids to yourself, that you email them to me, that you have them on Google Drive as a backup, that you have them on Dropbox, that you have them on a flash drive, right? You want to have your visual aids in as many places as you possibly can, especially if you're using a technological aid, just to make sure that if one doesn't work, that you have a backup plan and that you don't have to panic. The more that you plan ahead of time for possible things that could go wrong, the less anxiety you'll have when it comes to your actual speech day.